I wouldn't say my staff wrote that report.
Fair enough, Judge. Do you agree, quote, that the Delaware bar exam serves as a barrier to the racial and ethnic diversity of attorneys in Delaware?
Senator, I believe that that is a complicated, complex question that requires analysis.
I want to clarify this because you've had three people ask questions about it. I think I get the answer. Apparently, it's still in doubt to some. We're talking about recommendations made by a committee to you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
These are not recommendations that you personally wrote or were involved in writing?
That's correct.
You did not vote for or against those recommendations?
That's correct.
Some other body is now deciding if there's any action to be taken?
The Supreme Court is considering what to do with the recommendations.
That's pretty clear, isn't it? And the questions that have been asked over and over again suggest otherwise, and you've said over and over again just what I said. Is there anything more you want to say on the subject to make sure it's clear?
Thank you for the chance to clarify, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Certainly, Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Chairman, I think you mischaracterized my questions.
Oh, no, sir, I wasn't referring to you at all.
I'm glad to hear that because my questions of the judge were, and I never got an answer, did she agree or disagree with the recommendations?
Senator, I was not referring to you at all. You've asked that question, and most nominees have given the same answer as these nominees, but it's your right to ask that question. And so I was referring to this so-called report involving the Supreme Court.
I was too. If you have a second round, I'm going to ask it again.
Well, there's no plan.
Does the judge agree or disagree with the recommendations?
Senator,
I'm not really interested in how many lawyers can dance on the head of a pin.
Senator,
I'm just interested in getting whether the judge agrees or disagrees.
Senator, you're doing the same thing that we've done when the tables were turned. Try to get these nominees to say what their personal views are, and most of them think it through and believe that they can't do that, and it makes them sound as if they don't have a personal
Well,
view.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's the purpose of the Judiciary
Well, you're
Committee.
entitled to your opinion.
Let me just finish my thought. I'm entitled to my opinion. I mean, we're confirming these nominees for lifetime appointments. They're not elected. You don't think it's relevant what they believe?
I think you create a problem for them that jeopardizes their role as judges.
When I just ask them what they believe?
May I finish my thought?
Certainly, I apologize.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that they understand that if they start expressing their personal views, as Ms. Chung has said repeatedly, it's a forecast of the future, and they're trying their best to say law, facts, precedent, and stick with it. And I think that's what we expect of judges.
I just disagree, Mr. Chairman. I think people's personal beliefs, have they thought about the world? Have they thought about the issues that are central to American democracy? I think that's perfectly appropriate. I'm surprised that, no, and this isn't meant to be personal, but that you haven't directed the witnesses to answer our questions.
We asked the same question to Trump nominees and got the same response. This is a predictable course of action on this committee. We try to probe as deeply as we can, and witnesses don't always go along with the extent of our probe.
Well, recently they never do.
Well, under Trump's nominees, they never did either.
Well, I questioned them too, as you recall.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just, since I think that last back and forth was directed implicitly at me, I think you factually misstated the record, though, and maybe I'm wrong.
Let's get this straight, because I...
Well, can I just, let me, yeah,
Sure.
so here's, I think, maybe I'm wrong about this, I thought that the justice was the co-chair of this Diversity Strategic Planning Steering Committee. That entity issued a report to the Delaware Supreme Court. You said that some group made recommendations to the justice. I don't think that's right. I think she co-chaired a committee that made recommendations to the Delaware Supreme Court, and her testimony's been the Supreme Court hasn't acted on those recommendations.
Let her respond.
Sure.
It is correct that I'm the co-chair of the committee that made the recommendations, but what I was trying to clarify is that there's a subgroup, there are 5 subgroups that made recommendations. During those deliberations, the co-chairs, myself and the Chief Justice, did not make recommendations.
The point is that the justice co-chaired the panel. I think it's reasonable to ask her about the content of the report that they made. If she doesn't want to answer the questions per your exchange with Senator Kennedy, that's fine.
Suggestion she's dodging the question, how much more explicit can she be? It is an unusual situation, but best I can determine, she gathered the information and passed it along without a vote of approval or without any scrutiny on her person.
But, Mr. Chairman, I just respectfully disagree. I don't think That's not what I asked the witness. I asked her, does she agree or disagree with the recommendations? Forget the report.
That's another question, Senator.
But I never got an answer.
Oh, and I don't think you would from a Trump nominee either.
But we don't have Trump. I pressed a lot of Trump nominees, as you well know, and voted against a bunch of them. And they helped kill 4 or 5 that I didn't think were qualified. But I don't agree with your revisionist history, no disrespect, in the last 10 minutes. I asked the witness 4 or 5 times, do you agree or disagree? And I didn't get an answer. Now, you can call that dodging the question if you want to. That's a little pejorative to me, but I never got an answer, and I don't think that's inappropriate for me to ask. That's the issue.
Senator, by virtue of your position on the committee, you're entitled to ask what you wish.